Sheeks Aboot Shetland, Sheeks Aboot Shetland. So much going on here every single day. Sheeks Aboot Shetland, Sheeks Aboot Shetland. Everybody's got that much they want to say. Sheeks Aboot Shetland, Sheeks Aboot Shetland. Gonna do our best to put the world day right. Sheeks Aboot Shetland, Sheeks Aboot Shetland. Come along and listen to us speaking.
So, welcome to episode 6 of Sheeks Aboot Shetland on the Shetland podcast with myself, Pete Bevington, and
me, Jane Moncrief.
so we have started this podcast. When did we start it? About 3 weeks ago, April the 19th. We started off with a little chat with Jane and myself, just explaining what our thoughts were, what our plans were, and what our strategy was. Not that we have one. And then we were straight into we wanted to launch before the election because we wanted to speak to the candidates. A, because it's important, and B, because it would give us good practice for podcasting, which neither of us have done before. So we put the word out to all the candidates. There's 8 candidates. We thought what we could offer was something different because at a hustings, on the radio, on the written news, whether it's on the website or in the paper, you only get so much time, you only get so much space. And the issues are so important these days that they need longer discussions. We need longer conversations. So that's what we wanted to have, longer conversations with all 8 candidates. And it's been an interesting experience, Jane.
It sure has. And I do realise that we were quite tight for time in the run-up, as fair as it for our own time, but more importantly for the candidates' time, because they've got a lot of different responsibilities. Some of them have day jobs as well. So you can, our expectations were high, and we hoped we'd get them all, but I'm afraid that hasn't happened. But we have.
Sorry, carry on.
We have got most of the local candidates, which was really our principal aim, but not all.
Yes. Well, so let us explain. We got a very enthusiastic immediate response from the 2 prominent pro-independence parties. The SNP, Hannah Mary Goodlad, who's an extremely energetic campaigner, and Alex Armitage of the Greens, who is also a very energetic campaigner, as we all know. And also Brian Nugent was very amenable. He did respond, not quite as quickly, but he did respond.
Yeah, but he had his daughter's wedding in Sardinia, I think it was.
Yes.
He managed to fit us in when we were
He managed to fit us in his busy. Well, he didn't really look very busy. He was lying there on a chaise longue in his t-shirt, soaking up the sun. I mean, what a great way to spend your campaigning time, lying in the sun in Sardinia. Whether it will have lost him any votes or gained him any votes, we'll never know.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, we finally yesterday just managed to squeeze in 10 or so, 11, 12 minutes with Peter Tate, the kind of extreme left field candidate from Wales, who believes that a return of the monarchy to Scotland would heal the nation, and that James VI of Scotland made a big mistake when he moved to London, and all our problems stem from there. So he hopes to at least regain his deposit and to improve on the 100 votes he received last time round, because he stood for 3 times. So yeah, no.
Yeah. And he was very busy with Lemon, so it was good that he made the time for this.
Yes, and I admire people who show such commitment to their beliefs and ideas, no matter how unusual they might seem to everybody else, even though they obviously make total sense to them. So yes, then we had the 3 external candidates, the ones that don't live in Shetland. So we have Vic Curry of Reform, who's you spoke to, Jane.
I
Well, you
did.
did.
I messaged him and we messaged back and forth, and he seemed keen to begin with, but ultimately he said he didn't have the time and he was very apologetic. And I kind he's fitting his in with his job as a doctor as well, so maybe it's understandable. I don't know, but I was vexed, but hey ho.
Yeah. Well, and then there was John Erskine who replied to our email saying, "I'm sorry, guys, I just don't have time."
Very
But
pleasant about it again, but
yeah,
just didn't.
yeah, and I tried to kind of not bully him, but I tried to say, "Come on, what do you mean you can't spare an hour?" But he didn't respond, so he didn't bite to that one. And I think that for these parties, Shetland is it's not they're only going to get elected as list MSPs themselves. They want to go to the constituencies where there are the most people. Shetland's not a big constituency, so it's understandable that they know they're not going to win here, and they know that they need to get as many kind of second votes as they can, and they'll not get as many second votes here as they will, say, on the mainland of Scotland. So they're going to concentrate their energies there. So that makes total
Mhm.
sense. Interesting. I got managed to get hold of the mobile number for the Conservative candidate, Douglas Barnett, who's a 21-year-old student. And I
Mhm.
actually managed to get through to him. He was sitting in the library in his university, but he did phone me back. And when I proposed he come on the podcast, he was extremely enthusiastic. And he said yes, and we set up a time. And then mysteriously, about 10 minutes later, he phoned back and said, sorry, I have to cancel. He didn't even message. Sorry, I have to cancel. And I said, "Oh, is there a reason?" And he said, "Unfortunately, personal reasons." And I
Okay.
thought, what's happened here is this young lad has spoken to the higher ups in the Conservative Party, and they've suggested he doesn't go on a podcast because he doesn't have,
Mhm.
he's clearly very inexperienced. So, anyway,
But
so that,
just to add to that, Pete, I did send a couple of messages to Jamie Huxley Johnson because I didn't have a number for the candidate. And I said we didn't want him on the programme, we wanted the candidate. We wouldn't be speaking to him like the other hustings have done. And he didn't reply to me.
yeah, okay. Yeah, well, we're for those people, we're small beer. I mean, what's
Yeah.
interesting are the local candidates. That's what we care about. So, there's one local candidate who's kind of very conspicuous by her absence, I'd say. Emma Macdonald.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have tried really hard to get her. We have left messages. I spoke to her personally when I was in at BBC Radio Shetland editing and asked if we could have an hour or time, but she thought she would just be too busy. I mean, I kind of has been a hard time for her personally, and she's very busy, but I'm really vexed that she didn't manage to give us even just a pity start, like a half an hour, because I think Pop would have been really interested to hear what she has to say.
Absolutely. I mean, she holds a very important, I'd say the most important position because she's carrying the flag for the party that has represented Shetland since 1950. It's a
Hmm.
long time. It's a big heritage. Um, it's an important position. She has a great responsibility to the people of Shetland who have backed her party with their vote for all these decades. And the question I really wanted to ask Emma Macdonald more than any other question was why she left the SNP, because she was a member of the SNP and she left the SNP and she became an independent, if I remember rightly, she became an independent councillor. And then when it became clear that Beatrice Wishart was standing down, she joined the Liberal Democrats. Now, I might have that wrong, but that's my recollection of the story. So it seems to me Emma Macdonald, well, it would be, I wouldn't want to kind of guess what her motivations are behind all that. I mean, that's for her to say and for other people to imagine. But I think they're questions that should be asked, and I haven't heard anybody else ask those questions. And those were the questions I wanted to ask because, um, one could get the impression that she's riding on the back of the success of the Liberal Democrats in this part of the world. And to be honest, I and everybody else I've spoken to who have commented on the election literature that the Liberal Democrats have put out, all it seems to say is don't vote SNP. And that doesn't amount to much, I'm afraid. Um, I think in the times in which we live, we need to have, serious people asking and answering serious questions because we're at a juncture in history for the world. And Shetland is not an insignificant place in the world in its own right. It's a very, very special, important, strategic place. And
I
it's
think
sorry,
I was
carry on.
going to say, I think you should also add that you did get in touch with Alistair Carmichael a few times to try and get Emma to come and speak to us. But
Yeah, thank you. I did. I mean, I know Alistair Carmichael from my years working with Shetland News. We knew each other very well, and I've always had a very good relationship with him. So I felt it wasn't inappropriate for me to, because I'd written an email to Emma, and she had written eventually, she wrote back saying, she was having fat domestic issues that she needed to attend to first. And then when I didn't hear anything more, I thought, oh, well, I'll just nudge Alistair. I know Alistair, and could he have a word, just like maybe tell her this is perhaps something she should do because it's an opportunity for exposure. It would help with her campaign. And he did. And I ended up, I've had kind of continuous communications with Alistair trying to get a response from Emma, and nothing's been coming. The message is I'm too busy. But the thing is, everybody else, even Peter Tate in the lambing season managed, and the leading candidate didn't come forward is, I would say, to the least disappointing.
I wonder too if they think it were just not very important because we have
Ah,
just
yes.
up.
Hadn't thought of that one.
Because they've managed to speak to other media outlets in Shetland. So it's obviously something about what podcasts, I think. They just think it's maybe not relevant. However, I would like to say since we started, we have had in total, up to about an hour ago, 1,545 views. Now, bracken that down for the political podcast, it was 831. And that's not inconsiderable. If you think that this is quite a small constituency,
Yeah.
maybe that would make a difference to the way somebody votes.
You mean we might be influencing the outcome of the election, Jane?
Well, you never know, Pete. I mean,
Well,
you can. Like, it's given them a chance. The people that did step up to the podcast, it's given them a chance in depth to explain where they're
yeah,
coming from. And it would have been good to have given that opportunity to everybody.
absolutely. So let's talk about the candidates that we did manage to speak to,
Okay.
starting with the Green Gansey, as I call him, Alex Armitage, the man of the signs. That I saw one driving through Bray the other day that said G for Gramsci.
Yeah.
Exactly. I wonder how many people have even heard of Gramsci, let alone know what he said and what that means. So anyway, what were your thoughts about Alex's
Very
presentation?
enthusiastic.
Mhm.
Um, I think he's a great campaigner,
Yes,
and he has certainly worked hard to keep himself in the public eye.
certainly has done
Yeah.
that. Yes, it's paid.
And there's a lot of the younger generation that are very keen on green policies.
That's right.
On the other hand, I'm not very sure why he stood as a candidate in Shetland. Okay, is he
Well,
split
he lives
vote?
here. He lives and works here. His family's here.
Yeah, but I think the comment I'm heard for a lot of folk is that he might split the vote in a way that's no favourable for independence because he believes in independence, and
Yeah.
what like he probably want to get in here. So
This
it's
is
motivation.
oh right, yes, I see what you're saying. But this is a long-standing issue. Well, I remember about 10 years ago there was an argument for that election. I think it must have been the Miriam Brett when Miriam Brett was representing the SNP, and there were members of the party then who weren't happy about the Greens standing a candidate because it would split the independence vote. So that would have been just after the referendum,
Mhm.
and there was a lot of kind of fire behind the independence movement. Um, but that situation hasn't gone away. You're dead right. And it's interesting as well because, the likely outcome of this election from everything. I mean, I looked at the odds on an SNP government after the election. And you know how when you hear about horse racing bets odds, it's like 2 to 1 or 5 to 1. Well, the chances of an SNP government, the odds are 1 to 33. So I think that means if you give the bookie £33, you get £1 back.
Yeah,
So,
they'll be
so
betting on
that
it.
well, exactly. That's the certainty. I mean, you're not going to get much in return for for that bet. So, I mean, everybody knows that is going to be an SNP government. The question is whether or not it's with the Greens or not, and the SNP stand a chance. The SNP stand a greater chance of winning this time round than they have ever done before in Shetland.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, I mean, Hannah Mary has been a very, very strong candidate. I mean, she has put an extraordinary amount of energy and commitment into this campaign.
Hmm. Over a year now, she said.
I mean, I've never seen anything like it. And I mean, it was what was very interesting about, I mean, well, sticking with Alex Armitage before we move on to Hannah Mary, my thoughts about the Green Party as a whole and Alex as well as part of that movement. The Greens are really swelling up from the grassroots with the younger people, and they represent a set of values which we should be able to support because it's about fairness, it's about the environment, nature, caring for each other, all the good things. The question with the Greens, it's very aspirational, and they're not yet kind of organized and experienced enough to take on a serious role in government, to be the government. Then we spoke to Brian Nugent, who, as we said, was speaking to us from a hotel in Sardinia, preparing a speech for his daughter's wedding. So yeah, he was having the most relaxed campaign of everybody.
He
What did you
went.
think? What did you think of Brian?
I thought, yeah, he came across very relaxed. I enjoyed the podcast for him. Really humorous, which is maybe no side of Brian that I have seen much of before. So that
Hmm.
was good. Um, Again, I admire his principled stance. You kind that he's a man that's putting his money where his mouth is and doing what he believes in, which is something that you can't say for every politician or would be politician. So that's how I would sum up Brian.
Yes, he's taken a very principled stand.
Yes.
He doesn't think the SNP are serious about independence,
Hmm.
which is a bit of a charge to make. But he just thinks Scotland just needs to get the hell away from, Westminster.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I think I have a lot of sympathy with that point of view,
Hmm.
really. I think a lot of our problems are caused by the Westminster system. And whether independence is the right route or not, I suspect it probably is. I don't really know constitutionally, but I just think that the further we can get away from Westminster and its politics, the better, because it's so ingrained the whole British Empire mentality and Britain rules the waves and all that is still really strong in there. There's still a sense of power that isn't real anymore. And they are the state of England. You know, I come from England. I was speaking to somebody yesterday and we were talking about the election, and we had the conversation about independence, and someone was saying that they really didn't think independence was a good idea. We really don't need it. And me and the English guy, because there was an English guy there as well, we both said, well, the state of England, you wouldn't want to have anything to do with it because England is really going downhill
Mhm.
in a big way because it's not being looked after. And Scotland is actually being looked after a lot better than England is. So my feeling is, I've lived down there and I know what the politics are like down there, and the system is so ossified. It's not working anymore, and just we don't want to be involved with it.
Mhm.
My opinion is to get the further away from it as possible, the better we are.
Okay. The thing I'm not quite sure about, and I kind of mind, thinking back to what Brian said, is what happens like if we do get an SNP government. Do all the various ones, the groups that he belongs to that are standing, the candidates, I mean, will they come in behind the SNP at some stage? Because there seems to be a split there that's not a
Yeah.
very good idea.
Well, I mean, Alex put his finger on it in one way. I mean, Brian's argument against the SNP is that they're not serious enough. They should be causing more trouble so that England doesn't want to have anything to do with this anymore. Westminster doesn't want to have anything to do with this anymore. And I think he was suggesting that that was the inevitable possibility unless things are actually, that he believes, and I tend to agree with him, that there's an inexorable move towards independence for Scotland. The support for it is growing consistently, and support for Westminster is decreasing consistently. So that's a trend that's going on. And he just thinks, Brian thinks that the SNP should just be getting on with it, and they're getting distracted by other things, which is interesting because everybody accuses the SNP of thinking only about independence, which is the opposite to what Brian thinks. They're not thinking enough about independence, is what he thinks.
Do you think he wants a revolution?
Well, he said not. He said not. But I think he was suggesting, without maybe even knowing he was suggesting it, that unless something is done about this matter, then there could be a revolution. There will be trouble in the streets. Things will get, if you have something that wants to be born and it's not being allowed to be born, then it will erupt in different ways.
But we don't want the Glouth folk, though, Pete.
No, we don't want a Glouth folk, and I don't think revolution is about to break out in the streets. Certainly, the streets of Scalloway and Hillswick.
God,
Although, so and then Alex Armitage, he talks about the SNP being a weather vane party, saying that they just blow with the wind, whatever the direction is going. In a sense, he was agreeing with Brian, but he was basically saying they don't stand for anything. The SNP, they have different people they don't have a value foundation. The foundation of the party is independence. Um, and I'm sure he's right. I'm sure he's right. I think they do have. I mean, they're kind of left leaning, if you like. I think they carry a bit of the spirit that Scotland has that I don't sense so much in England, certainly in southern England, of community. I think Scotland is more community oriented, and I think the SNP reflect that. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is an Englishman speaking. I don't know.
well, they used to be accused of being the Tartan Tories way back.
Yeah.
But to my mind, a lot of the policies that they're carried through has been more socialist.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think these political labels are becoming less helpful, put it that way. I think it's about um, government is a complicated business, and you've got to please the powers that be. You've got to please industry. You've got to please the people. You've got to please the shopkeepers. You've got to please all these people. You've got to keep the services running. Um, you've got to please the voters at the end of the day, who are judging you based on what they learn about you through the media. And then there's the bias of the media that plays a huge role. I think far more, maybe people are waking up to the way the media works and how they manipulate opinion to an ever increasing way. I mean, it's almost as if I was hearing yesterday about how the Labour Party is turning against Keir Starmer, but the way that's becoming clear is through the way the Guardian is reporting it. So it's like the media is used by the powers that be, by politicians or business or whatever, to get their point of view across. One of the reasons we're doing a podcast like this is because podcasts are one of the ways people can hear about things through other means and go into things in more depth.
Yeah, but maybe folk didn't like what we're saying or accuse us of being biased in one way or another. Okay.
Yes, which is why I think on a podcast it is important to be clear about, where you stand and not pretend that you're just like objectively reporting the news. You remember what it was like at Radio Shetland, how you had to be supremely balanced with everything you recorded.
Yeah,
And so,
definitely. It has its good points, but it also has its challenges, I would say. And it's quite freeing to be able to have a podcast and just
Sheeks.
cheeks, yeah.
I remember I had a conversation years and years and years ago in London when I was working for a community radio campaign, and there was a big discussion about whether we would let the National Front on a community radio program. The National Front were the kind of British National Party, or the extreme right-wing racists for British nationalism. And my attitude was always, yes, you should let them on so people can hear what they have to say and make their own judgments. If you stop somebody from speaking, if you censor people, then then it just keeps people in ignorance more than anything else. I don't believe in that. I think people should. I'm a great believer in free speech and allowing people to make up their own minds. And I find that podcasts are a space where that can happen. And I think the actual mainstream media is declining.
Although there've been lots of criticism in that the BBC, for example, gave Reform far too much time.
Well, I mean, the BBC ultimately are connected to government. They require, in wartime, the BBC will always back the government, as we know. If there's a big issue like a referendum for independence, the BBC will follow the establishment line. And I mean, it would appear that Reform are being lined up to be the next government at Westminster. I mean, and from what I gather, Nigel Farage isn't quite living up to what he's supposed to be doing, because I think the establishment in Westminster recognizes that things are not going well, and they're making mistakes and they're losing their grip. The establishment parties, the Labour and the Tories, are going down incredibly rapidly. Oh, hello. I didn't know who was that?
That's Bo.
Oh, hello, Bo. Gonna join you on the podcast. But yeah, I don't think the Reform are living up to the hopes of the establishment, and the establishment is worried, and things are not going well in Labour. Things are not going well in the Tories, and so they know things are changing, and the Reform and the Greens are coming up, and the Greens want to change things at a really fundamental level, and Reform want to kind of go back to some kind of British nationalism, which is basically letting the British establishment, do what the British establishment does. So it's a sticky situation for the rest of the country. In fact, the SNP Scotland is looking a lot more stable than Westminster right now.
And it seems to be a real issue in this election that folk are worried about Reform coming in as the next government, the Scottish perspective.
Well, I think reform getting elected in Westminster will be a big one of the best things that could happen for Scottish independence. I mean, things are, we're living in unprecedented times.
Hmm.
There is no stability. Everything is uncertain, including the politics of everything. I mean, things are changing at a really fundamental level, and are sensing that. And there's like, what do I hold on to? People are looking for security. So, under the current circumstances, the SNP, to me, having been in government for 19 years and having that kind of experience, are looking a lot more stable than just about anybody else, to be honest with you. And I think what people are looking for now is stability. And I wonder if that's perhaps why support for the SNP doesn't seem to be diminishing at all. In fact, I don't know if it's growing or not, but I certainly know that the support for independence in the country as a whole is growing. And I
Okay.
think and I think it is in Shetland as well. Would you say
Hmm.
that?
Yeah, well, maybe we should speak about Hannah Mary Goodlett then, because we've not spoken about her yet.
Yes. Well, that was a very interesting. What did you think of the conversation with Hannah Mary?
Uh, Really interesting because I've not heard it in depth before. Like a lot of the things she explained to me or to us in the podcast, kind of about energy and various different things. It was a bit of a revelation to me. It's not something that I understand particularly well. So I was very interested in what she had to say about that. And I thought she came across very well at the podcast. I thought she seemed sincere in her views and in her beliefs, in her ideas and the policies that she put forward in the podcast. So yeah, I thought it was very, very interesting. What about you?
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody has agreed that she is a very impressive candidate.
Hmm.
The line I have heard consistently is if she was an independent, I'd vote for her like a shot, you know.
Yeah.
Or I'm voting for Hannah Mary, but I'm not going to vote. I don't want to vote for the SNP.
Hmm.
I mean, so while Emma's only campaign message appears to be don't vote for the SNP, and I suspect that that's, you know, how a lot of people feel, and that's what Hannah Mary is trying to break down is that kind of attitude of like bad SNP bad, and let's stick with the LibDems because we've been them with them all these decades. But I mean, she has some really original, interesting. I mean, I how could you not be impressed with someone? I mean, she was on a extremely well-paid job in the energy industry, living in Norway. She's lived in different places. She's chosen to give up her job and a very high salary to commit herself to Shetland because she believes that Shetland has untapped potential, and she's seen it not making progress, and obviously clearly finding that very frustrating. It was very interesting when she talked about the Islands Act. Is it the Islands Act?
Hmm.
And how within that act it says, you know, the island councils can demand more powers, and not
Hmm.
one of the councils has approached the government.
Hmm.
Um, Clearly she sees opportunities that nobody else has picked up on. And you know, she's been to Faro and she's looked at Faro and she's looked at how they do things and listened to their perspective on Shetland, where in saying in Faro they call Shetland the can't do islands.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's, you know,
That's tough. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you know, you don't want to have that image. Um, And the other thing, you know, she spoke to can't remember if it was the deputy or the prime minister, who said when she told them about the amount of money Shetland has, which is close to £1 billion with all the reserves and the charity trust, the prime minister of Faro said, if we had that money, what we could do.
Yeah.
And I mean, Hannah Mary seems to understand. She talks about bonds, about using money creatively, and which Shetland hasn't been doing. It's been, investing it in the fund with fund managers in the City of London, and using the profits, the interest to invest in public services, which is fine, but it's not creative in a way that I sense that Hannah Mary could see as a possibility. And even if she doesn't get elected, I think that's something that she might, if she is continuing to commit herself to Shetland, if she doesn't win, maybe that's something that she could kind of advise on, I don't know, or work with.
I think what's really interesting about Hannah Mary to me is that she has lived and worked in so many different places.
Hmm.
And although she's a Shetlander and she's deeply connected to Shetland, she's able to bring an outside perspective. And I think that comes from her business dealings, but also for living and working in other places and seeing the creative ideas that they have and being able to take that where and maybe bring that not just to Shetland, but if she was elected to Scotland, you can to make it more confident and more innovative.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it was you commented, I remember, about the quality of life, or the quality, that like the cleanliness of the streets, if you like, in Norway, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've heard other people say, like go to Denmark, and things are just feel so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Shetland is in a much better state. I'm not sure people realize how much of a better state Shetland is in than the rest of the country. I mean, you just drive on the roads down south and you potholes and things like that shouldn't be there. Because Shetland was the only place in Britain that benefited properly as a community from the oil, from the bonanza. We continue to have a far better quality of life than other people.
I'll give you one pretty example of when we were in Norway last summer. Well, I'll maybe give you two examples, but the first one is public toilets, which doesn't seem like a very big deal. But when you're on holiday and you've got bairns for you and yourself, you didn't like, obviously you need to use the public toilets. Well, the public toilets in Norway are no free. You pay like a couple of kroner to use them, but they're absolutely fantastic. They're so
What's a couple of krona in pounds?
Oh gosh, I don't know, not very much.
Like 10p or 20p or
I don't kind I'm not off the top of my head, Pete. I
okay, fair
couldn't
enough.
remember, but it was
Okay.
manageable.
Okay. But
And
it was worth it.
it was worth it. Yeah, they had beautiful toilets. But if you go to a public toilet on the whole in Shetland, they are not very salubrious to say the least. But you can, that's an idea that we could take and visitors could use them and pay a bit of money, okay? The other thing that I was really impressed with was that they had zebra crossings all over the Piri villages. So every street had a zebra crossing, no like a fancy thing with pelicans and stuff like that,
Right.
but enough in Piri villages that cars and trucks and that can't slow down.
Okay.
And I think like our Shetland, we were getting 20-mile-an-hour signs that nobody pays any attention to. But if you could have a culture change and have a zebra crossing on the streets, hopefully that would work the way it worked in Norway. So there's just a couple of ideas, Pete, that I've turned back.
So
We could,
yeah, really simple, low
yeah,
energy, low cost kind of ideas, yeah.
yeah,
And cross-pollination.
yeah.
I mean, Shetland's got real opportunity. I mean, in the literature that Hannah Mary put out, there was a map with Shetland at the middle, and it kind of displayed out all around the globe. So you could see how close we were to Norway from that perspective, and like in the middle between Scotland, Norway, and Faroe. And it's really interesting to view Shetland from that perspective.
What the crossroads of the North Atlantic, okay?
Yeah,
Everybody used to come here and go out of here. I
yeah,
mean, we have, like, if you go back in history, Shetlanders travelled all over the world.
absolutely, Absolutely. No, it's a very, very special place and a very strategic place, which is why we have a space station here, for example. I mean, Shetland, at times of war, and we are in times of war, um, Shetland is a strategic place, and that continues to be the case, with the space station, because that's clearly one of its roles.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a great place to live, and it's going to be an interesting few years ahead, I would say. It's going to be probably the most exciting election that Shetland has experienced for many a year. Certainly the most exciting one that I have ever experienced up here. I feel very motivated to vote, which I haven't felt for some time. So yeah, and I mean, it's a nail biter, isn't it?
I always vote whether I feel motivated or no, because it was so hard for women to get the vote. So my mum always encouraged us to vote, so I've always done that. We've not given a pretty mention to Peter yet, so we should do that as well. Because
Peter.
we're not spoken about Peter Tate's policies.
Yes, it was a bit of a challenge. I mean, getting hold of him was a challenge because he was very hard to get through to because he was out lambing all the time. We only had a phone number, but he did eventually respond, and we managed to squeeze him in yesterday, and we put it up today. Yes, I didn't really know. I mean, I struggle to understand quite why he's standing.
Yeah, I'm still a pretty bit confused by it all, but again, a man that's standing by his ideas and his principles, and that has to, you can be admired, I think, whether you agree with him or no.
That's right. I mean, I mean, if he's standing on a set of principles, you would have thought he'd want to kind of broadcast those principles. And he's not a man equipped with great media skills.
No.
And, so it's hard for him to kind of explain the message that he clearly believes in. And he's
Yeah,
clearly very, very, very sincere about it and means it. But it's just so different to anything I've heard anybody talk about. The idea of going back however many hundreds of years to the time when James the Sixth became James the First of England. I mean, that's pre Union of the Crowns, I think.
yeah, but at least
No, that is the Union of the Crowns, isn't it?
yeah,
No, it is the Union. Yes, of course, it is the Union.
he took the time, although, like as you say, he's maybe no media savvy, and a Zoom was not something that he was very familiar with. He did it, and hats off
Yes,
to him for that.
exactly. Yes, which kind of shines a spotlight on Emma.
We're back.
Where is Emma?
Yeah, well, all to play for tomorrow.
Yes, indeed. It's going to be a photo finish. We shall look forward to seeing I can't imagine how the candidates feel. I mean, butterflies in the tummy will have nothing to do with it. I mean, we shall see. We shall see. Okay, Jane. Well, I hope that was of interest to people. It was
Well,
just,
who knows?
who
We
knows?
put it out into the ether and see if anybody watches it.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe we're speaking total garbage, and maybe we hopefully not too boring. But anyway, all the best for everybody. Do take advantage of your vote. You get to vote for an individual to stand as the Shetland MSP, and then for the party to help kind of choose who the list MSP would be.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah?
Yep. You have
Okay.
2 votes, one for your local MSP and then one for your list. So please do use your vote.
Yes.
We live in a democracy still, so try and vote if you can.
I'll vote for that. Okay. Until the next time.
Cheerio!
Ta-da.
Sheeks aboot Shetland, sheeks aboot Shetland, so much going on here every single day. Sheeks aboot Shetland, Everybody's got that much they want to say. Sheeks aboot Shetland, sheeks aboot Shetland, gonna do our best to put the world to rights. Sheeks aboot Shetland, sheeks aboot Shetland, come along and listen to us speaking.